Alright, what is up you guys, and welcome back to the 98 English course. In today's recording we're going to be going over Unit 7, Inventions and Discoveries. So as you know the drill, we go with the key vocabulary and then we'll move on to the listening. Here we go. So we have accident, airplane, airport, bicycle, bus, comfortable, convenient, car, crash, cyclist, dangerous, death, economical, expensive, fast, fly, inconvenient, involve, journey, measure, method of transport, motorbike, motorist, passenger, pedestrian, safe, safety, slow, statement, traffic, train, uncomfortable, witness. Okay, so that was the key vocabulary. Now let's go to listening. So here we have 4 pictures, you guys, and what do you guys think they have in common? What do all of these pictures have in common? That's correct. These pictures all have some sort of accident or crash, right? So in this case, you know, this boat is sinking, this car was in a car accident, right? This train is also malfunctioning, you know, this plane I think is broken, right? So all of these are accidents, all these crashes and accidents are what's common in these pictures. Alright, so let's go to comparing the different methods of transport, and this will be our main topic in this lesson. So I want to ask you guys a question right now. What do you guys think is the safest method of transport? For you personally, what do you think? For me, I'd definitely say it's the airplane, just because there are not many airplanes in the sky, right, at once. So your chance of actually going or ramming yourself into another airplane is almost impossible, right? And that reduces the percentage or risk percentage a lot. Okay, but I'll talk about that as we go along. So, you know, you can't really compare between boats or ships and cars because we use cars almost daily, and it's just a lot harder for cars not to get into accidents. Did you know that, you know, your chance of being in a car crash or a car accident is a lot higher than boats or even airplanes and trains, right? So I'd say that cars, or using, you know, basically land vehicles, not all of them, just cars and maybe buses, are one of the most dangerous ways or methods of transport. Okay, let's go. So here he even says that I think riding a motorbike is more dangerous than driving a car, and I think that the reason for that is because it's simply you literally have no protection when riding a motorbike. That head helmet is not going to protect your whole body. So if you're going 100 kilometers per hour and you bump into something or another car, you could get seriously injured or even die, right? While, yeah, I mean, in a car, your chance for a serious injury is also there, and a lot of people die in a car crash, but it's just you have added protection, especially with newer cars. Okay, now let's go to exercise C here. Look at table 1 opposite. We're actually going to open that so you guys can get a better view. Here we have the accidents and order column, right? So accidents and for different methods of transport. Okay, so we're going to listen to this audio. I want you guys to take out a sticky note because it's quite long, and we're going to write them as we go along or after. It depends. Okay, so here, have a listen.
102. Unit 7. Inventions and Discoveries. Lesson 1. Listening. Exercise C2. Listen. Predict the next word. Then, complete the accidents per annum and order columns. What is the safest method of transport? Actually, we can't answer that question before we answer another one. How can we measure safety? One way is to look at the number of accidents for each method. In America in 2002, the largest number of accidents involved cars. There were 2,378,000 car accidents. In second place, we have accidents involving pedestrians, that is, people walking near roads or crossing roads. There were 77,000 accidents involving pedestrians. Then, at number 3, we have accidents involving bicycles. There were 58,000 accidents involving cyclists. That's slightly more than accidents involving motorbikes. The figure there was 54,000. Buses were much safer in this way of measuring. There were only 17,000 bus accidents, but that's still more than twice the number of boat or ship accidents, 8,000. Finally, we have very small numbers for trains and planes. Only 3,000 accidents involved trains and 1,700 involved planes.
Alright, so for planes we have around 1,700 accidents, right? And its order is last, so at 8, right? So like I told you guys that cars get into the most accidents, right? Coming in at 2,378,000, right? It's the highest number in the United States in 2002. And coming right after it was, what was it? It was pedestrians, yes. So pedestrians, we're talking about people that are crossing the roads. I know a lot of reckless people out there, right? So a lot of people crossing the roads without looking, a lot of people on the sidewalk, right? All of these people cause a lot of accidents, right? So these are the different accidents per annum, right? And they're ordered depending on the audio, okay? So now let's move on. What else do we have? Here we have listen to part of the talk again. Okay, so we're gonna listen to this one more time, and what I want you guys to focus on now is we're gonna hear 2 questions. So we're gonna have to write down these 2 questions that the speaker is gonna say, right? Let's do that for now. Here we go.
103. Exercise D. Listen to part of the talk again. What is the safest method of transport? Actually, we can't answer that question before we answer another one. How can we measure safety? One way is to look at the number of accidents for each method.
Okay, so that was that. The 2 questions are, what is the safest method of transport? The question that I asked you guys earlier, right? So what is the safest method of transport? And the second one was, how can we measure safety, right? Safety. So how, or what is the safest method of transport, and how can we measure safety? Okay, these are the 2 questions that the speaker was asking about. Now for 2, we can hear the speaker say that one way is to look at the number of accidents for each method. So what does this sentence tell us exactly about later information in the talk? Let's read the skills check so we can find out. So here we have something called predicting the structure of a talk. So you'll often hear speakers help us predict the structure of a talk by saying things like, how can we measure safety? Like, for example, one way is, and they'll keep going, right? That's mean they're getting straight to the point. Or they could also say, we could look at, this is also a way of saying, or they will say something a little bit later. So another way is, and keep going, or the other way, or the best way is, right? Or alternatively, we could look at, right? All of these are, I'll say later, okay? So let's go back to that sentence. So one way is to look at the number of accidents for each method. This is us now predicting the structure of this talk. So from this, I'll probably say that this sentence is going to tell us, or that this speaker is going to look at the different number of accidents for each method of transport, right? So based on this sentence right here, I can predict that the speaker is going to talk about the different number of accidents for each method of transport. Okay? So that was predicting the structure of a talk. Now let's move on. What else do we have? Do we have anything else here? No, we don't. We just did that. So let's go to exercise E here. We have think about other ways of measuring transport safety. Okay. So here we have look at the other column headings in the table. What do you think they mean? We'll go over that later. So we're going to write a short explanation of each heading, or for each heading. Okay? So accidents per annum. What is that? What does that mean, you guys? Accidents per annum. It actually means it's the number of accidents each year that involve each method of transport. So if we're going to write that down, we'll say, oh, can I not write that? Okay, that's interesting. I cannot write that. I think it's glitched. No worries, no worries. So accidents, I cannot write it. Okay, so I'm just, you guys are just going to have to write it down. So accidents per annum are the accidents, or number of accidents each year involving each method of transport. Okay? Then we have deaths per annum. That's the number of deaths each year for each method of transport. Okay? And then we have deaths per billion kilometers, and that's the number of deaths for every billion kilometers that people travel. Okay? So this number is the number of deaths that, or for every billion, not million, billion kilometers that people travel. Okay? And finally, we have chance of dying on method of transport. And this means that the chances of dying when traveling by each method in your lifetime. Okay? So your chances of dying when using these methods in your lifetime is, and you'll get a percentage. Okay? So let's listen and check our ideas.
104. Exercise E3. Listen and check your ideas. How can we measure transport safety? One way is to look at the number of accidents for each method. Another way is to look at the number of deaths by each method. Do more people die each year in car accidents or plane crashes, for example? We could look at the distance that people travel by each method each year. For example, people travel much longer distances by car than by bicycle. So we could measure the deaths per passenger kilometer. Finally, we could consider the chance of having a fatal accident, the chance of dying when traveling by each method. There aren't many plane crashes, but when a plane crashes, most passengers die. On the other hand, there are millions of car accidents every year, but in most cases, nobody dies.
Okay, so this is actually really interesting. This is something that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and that's the fact that the percentage of getting into a plane crash or a plane accident is extremely low, but when it does happen, you gotta know that most passengers, if not all, end up dying, right? While for cars, there are accidents that happen almost daily, millions yearly, right? But for the most part, people seem to make it out fine, right? So people don't die. They could get injured. Some people can get seriously injured, but for the most part, people do not die. That's not to say that there are no accidents that cause death when it comes to cars, because there are a lot. It's just not the same as, if you have a plane full of passengers and you get in a plane crash, they'll most likely die. Okay? So that was exercise E. Now let's go to exercise F here. Here we have work in groups of 8. And here we have each person must choose one method of transport. Okay, so you guys, if you guys are in groups of 8, right, or 8 people, choose your own method of transport, whether that's transport by plane, by ship, by boat, cars, trains, you get the idea. Okay, and we're going to complete the table here. So we talked about accidents per annum and the order of the audio. Now we're going to talk about death per annum, death per billion kilometer, and chance of dying on method of transport. Okay, so here we have bicycles, ships, you get the idea. So this is actually 4 minutes long, so I'd like for you to take out a sticky note and pay attention, because you're going to have to write notes down so you don't forget. Okay, so different people listen to different information about your own transport method and complete the remaining columns here. So here we go.
105. Exercise F2. Listen for information about your method. Complete the remaining 3 columns in Table 1. So, there are 4 main ways to measure transport safety. We know about accidents. What about the figures for the other ways? Firstly, let's look at deaths per annum. Again, cars are the most dangerous method of transport. There were 40,000 deaths in 2002 in car accidents. In second place were pedestrians. There were 5,307 deaths of pedestrians. Motorcyclists were in third place, but a long way behind. 2,106 people died in accidents involving motorcyclists. Less than half that number died in train accidents. The actual figure was 1,096. Cyclists and ship passengers had very similar results. 813 people died in cycling accidents and 819 in boating or shipping accidents. Fewer plane passengers died, 635. Finally, what about bus passengers? Only 17 people died on buses in the US in 2002. Another way to measure transport safety is to look at deaths per kilometer. We measure deaths per billion passenger kilometers. When we measure transport safety in this way, we have a new number 1. It is motorcyclists. There were 112 deaths per billion passenger kilometers by motorcyclists in the US in 2002. Pedestrians were in second place, 49 deaths, and cyclists third at 41 deaths. Car accidents are in fourth place by this measure, only 2.8 deaths per billion passenger kilometers. Trains caused 0.9 deaths per billion kilometers. Then we have some very small numbers. Ships 0.04, buses 0.06, and planes 0.02. Finally, what is the actual chance of dying during your lifetime in a particular kind of transport accident? When we measure this way...
Alright, so I'll just pause it for a second just so I don't get lost here. So the last one was bus, and it was at 0.06, I think. Yes, if I'm not mistaken. So bus is at 0.06. Ships is around 0.04, and planes are at 0.02, and trains were at 0.9. Okay, perfect. Let's keep going.
A low figure is bad. I mean, if you have a 1 in 2 chance, that's very bad. If you have a 1 in 2,000 chance, the method's much safer. So, the figures. You have the biggest chance of dying as a pedestrian, 1 in 612. Next, we have car accidents, 1 in 869. Motorbikes are in third place, 1 in 1,159. Cyclists are in less danger. They have 1 chance in 4,857 of dying. For ship accidents, the figure's 1 in 9,019. For plane accidents, it's 1 in 20,015. And for bus accidents, 1 in 86,628. The safest way to travel, according to this measure, is by train. The chance of dying in a train accident is just 1 in 133,035. So the next time you travel, stop for a moment and think about how safe you are.
And bus was around, what was it, 86,628. Okay, so here we have the death per annum for these methods, and another measurement, which is the death per billion kilometers, right? And finally, the chance of dying on these methods of transport. So basically, what the guy wants to say is that the higher the method, the better it is for you as a person, right? So if it's, like he said, 1 in 2, then that's very bad, and you are more than likely to get into an accident, right? But the higher the number, the safer you are, basically, right? So your chance of dying on method of transport is 1 in 9,019 for ships, for example. 4,857 for bicycles, right? For just being a pedestrian, that's 1 in 612. Okay, and you got for planes 2,000, 20,000, and 15, right? So it's basically, it just depends on the number. Okay, and I think that's about it. Okay, yeah, so that's it. That was listening, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, you guys, so now moving on to lesson 2, speaking. Here we have exercise A. Look at the picture, answer the questions below. So what is happening? So take a look, you guys, at the picture here. What is happening? What do you guys think is happening? For me, I'd say that I think there's an accident, right? A car crash. And the police are talking to one of the 2 drivers, right? So for question 2, we have, when there's a road accident, what do the drivers do, the police do, and any witnesses do? Okay, so this will be up to you, but for me, I'll say that drivers stop and exchange information, right? And the police usually ask questions and they take notes. And if there are any witnesses, they tell the police what they saw, and they could also make a statement. Okay? So that's when there's a road accident, that's what the drivers should do, the police should do, and any witnesses. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B here. We're going to listen to 2 different conversations. Okay, so we're going to match the conversations with the pictures or illustrations, and we're going to explain what happened. So here, have a listen.
106. Lesson 2. Speaking. Exercise B. Listen to 2 conversations.
Conversation 1.
So, what happened?
I was riding my bike along this road. The door of a car suddenly opened and I hit it. I fell off my bike.
Are you all right?
I hurt my arm, but I don't think it's broken.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking about my appointment. I was late, you see.
Late?
Yes, I was late to see the doctor. I didn't look in the mirror before I opened the door. Conversation 2.
So, what happened?
I stopped at the red light. The car behind didn't stop. He went into the back of my car.
I'm sorry, I was...
Were you talking on your cell phone?
No, I was...
Yes, he was. He was talking on his phone and he didn't see the red light.
Is that true?
Well, yes, I was talking on my phone, but I was looking at the road too.
So, why did you hit the car in front then?
Alright, so based on these two conversations, well, let's explain conversation A, which is illustration B here. So what exactly happened? You see, this girl was riding her bike along the road, right, when she suddenly saw the door of a car open, right, and she hit the door and she fell off her bike, right? She hurt her arm, but it's not broken, right? And the lady came out and said that she was sorry, and the reason for that was because she was thinking about her appointment, she was late, and she didn't look in the mirror before opening her door, okay? And for conversation 2, we have, obviously, the lady stopped at the red light, and the car behind her did not stop, okay? And obviously he was a guy, and he went into the back of her car, right? And obviously he was using his cell phone, which is a big no-no. And yeah, so he was talking on his phone, and he did not see the red light, and he rammed into the lady's car. Okay? So yeah, that was the two conversations. Now let's move on. What do we have here? Here we have look at the conversations and think of a verb for each space. Okay, so exercise C is the exact same. Actually, exercise D is the exact same as C, but with a little more of a twist to it. So we'll just go straight to exercise D. So here we have here we have the conversations, right? So we're going to complete it with verbs in the correct form, okay? And then we're going to find two different past verb forms and why are they used, and then we'll read skills check 1. So we're gonna keep this audio for now. Let's start. So we have conversation 1. So what happened, right? A cyclist is going to say, I was riding my bike along this road. The door of a car suddenly opened, right? Opened, and I hit it. I fell off my bike. Are you alright? I hurt my arm, but I don't think it's broken. I am sorry. I was thinking about my appointment. I was late, you see. Late? Yes, I was late to see the doctor. I didn't look in the mirror before I opened the door. Okay, so let's read skills check 1 here. So we have something called interrupted actions. And interrupted actions are simply actions that are sometimes interrupted by something else or another action. So let's take a look at some examples. So here you see this line. This is the action itself. So for example, riding a bike, playing the piano, something, right? And the interruption comes in, right? So for example, in this case, the conversation, the door of a car suddenly opened, right? Or anything else, and that kind of switches it into the result, okay? So let's take another example. So here we have, I was riding my bike, right? When suddenly the door of a car suddenly opened, and the result of that is I hit it and I fell off my bike, okay? I was thinking about my appointments. I didn't look in the mirror, right? So these are all actions and the result after the interruption, okay? Some of the verbs here are the past continuous, as you can see. And here we have when the interruption happens, it becomes, or the sentence goes to past simple, and the result is also in past simple, okay? So again, the action is in past continuous, interruption is in past simple, and the result is in past simple, okay? So that was skills check 1. Now let's go to exercise. What do we have? We have exercise E. Okay, we're going to do the exact same, but with conversation 2, and we're going to complete it with the correct form of the verbs below. Okay, so we have talk, stop, look, not, see, not, stop. Okay, so we're going to correct the form of the verbs below. Okay, so conversation 2. Here we have, so what happened? Driver 1 says, it was stopped, not stop. Okay, so I stopped at the red light. The car behind me, in this case behind, or I don't need to say behind me, I'll just say behind, didn't, right? So didn't stop. He went into the back of my car. I'm sorry, I was, and police interrupts him by saying, nope, write that in capital, were you on, were you talking on your cell phone? No, I was. Yes, he was. He was talking on his phone, and he didn't see the red light. Is that true? Well, yes, I was talking on my phone, but I was looking at the road too. So why did you hit the car in front then? Okay, so that was conversation 2 with the appropriate verbs from the box here. Now let's listen to this audio and check our answers.
108. Exercise E2. Listen and check. So, what happened?
I stopped at the red light. The car behind didn't stop. He went into the back of my car.
I'm sorry, I was...
Were you talking on your cell phone?
No, I was...
Yes, he was. He was talking on his phone and he didn't see the red light.
Is that true?
Well, yes, I was talking on my phone, but I was looking at the road too.
So why did you hit the car in front then?
Alright, so we got all of them right. Now let's move on to exercise F, work in groups of 3. Okay, so this will sort of be a role play because after all this is a speaking section. So we're going to listen to both conversations one more time, okay? And what I want you guys to do after that is invent a similar situation, right? It's something that's really simple. Invent something up, right? Make something up in your mind and write a conversation for 3 speakers. So for these conversations we had 3 speakers, so in this case it was the police and either driver 1, driver 2, or the police, a cyclist, and 1 driver. So invent something similar and make the conversation for 3 speakers and role play your conversation after that. Okay, so let's listen to the audio and then we'll move on to exercise G. Here we go, have a listen.
109. Exercise F1. Listen to both conversations again.
Conversation 1.
So, what happened?
I was riding my bike along this road. The door of a car suddenly opened and I hit it. I fell off my bike.
Are you all right?
I hurt my arm, but I don't think it's broken.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking about my appointment. I was late, you see.
Late?
Yes, I was late to see the doctor. I didn't look in the mirror before I opened the door. Conversation 2.
So, what happened?
I stopped at the red light. The car behind didn't stop. He went into the back of my car.
I'm sorry, I was...
Were you talking on your cell phone?
No, I was...
Yes, he was. He was talking on his phone and he didn't see the red light.
Is that true?
Well, yes, I was talking on my phone, but I was looking at the road too.
So why did you hit the car in front then?
Alright, you guys, so again, invent a similar situation and role play the conversation. Alright, so now let's move on to exercise G, working in pairs. Okay, so after inventing and role playing that conversation that you did in exercise F, now you're going to think of a similar situation from your life, so something that has happened to you before. Okay? Think about what you want to say, or simply make up notes, right? And you could also ask your teacher about any keywords or important words that you might need. Not necessary, but you can do it, right? Now, take it in turns, take it slow, and describe your accident. That similar situation that happened in your life, describe it, right? But make sure that you use the correct past tenses, okay? So do some researches on the different past tenses and when do we use each one, right? And then you could also ask questions about your partner's accident if you have partners in class, okay? So that's exercise G. Now let's go to this skills check 2 really quick. We have improving your pronunciation, and if you've been watching these videos for a while, you know how important it is for me to improve your pronunciation. I always talk about it. I think that it's really important, okay? So here we have, when you learn a new word, say 3 times. I'll give you one better than saying it 3 times. Practice it, right? Practice your new word in sentences. Say it over and over again, not necessarily 3 times. Some people might memorize it from saying it 3 times. Some people might memorize it from, saying it 100 times or 10 times or 50 times. It depends. So instead of saying it, I know it can get really boring after a certain number of times, so why not just use that new word or start implementing it into your speaking, okay? Now, for point number 2 here, we have think. So, which sounds are difficult for me? And practice those sounds. Okay, so I know a lot of people struggle with the word R, or not the letter R, right? So, if you think that that's a problem, or any other sound in a word, you gotta practice on that sound to make it better. One more thing is the stress. You gotta always know the stress of the words or new words that you're saying, okay? So when practicing to say the word or implementing it into your speaking, please make sure that you're saying the word with the correct stress, okay? And final one, which is really not that important, say the word 10 more times. Again, if you're gonna implement it into your speaking, then, you can do this if you want, but hey, it's up to you. So say the word 10 more times, 3 times, whatever. I'll just say that please implement it so you don't forget it. Okay? So that was improving your pronunciation, speaking. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 3, vocabulary and pronunciation. So here we have exercise A, study the adjectives in the green box. So we have some adjectives here: fast, convenient, safe, comfortable, uncomfortable, inconvenient, expensive, dangerous, slow, economical. Okay? Now, for one, he wants us to match the opposites, okay? So the opposite adjectives in each case here will have fast, slow, obviously convenient and inconvenient, comfortable and uncomfortable, safe, dangerous, economical, expensive, and that's about it. Yeah, so all of these are opposites. Now, he wants us to use the adjectives, or these adjectives in particular, to talk about the different methods of transport. And here we have an example. Riding a bicycle is economical, right? I can also say traveling by car is uncomfortable, right? Have you guys ever traveled by car? It's so uncomfortable. Anyway, I could say traveling by car is uncomfortable. I could also say that driving a car is convenient, right? So sentences of that method, okay? So using adjectives to talk about the different methods of transport, right? Now let's move on to exercise B here. Complete each series in the table with a word from the box below. So let me open this again so you guys can get a better view. Okay. So for each series in the table, we're going to complete the words. So we have take off, fly, and it's only right that we say land, right? Obviously we're talking about planes here, so take off, fly, land. 2, get in, dash, stop, get out. Okay, we'll say drive. Okay, so get in, drive, stop, get out. Then we have get on, dash, get off. Okay, so here we'll say ride, because I can't say get on, check in, get off. Okay, slow lane, middle lane, and fast lane, right? 3 different lanes. Departure lounge, boarding gate, so obviously check-in, airport, so check-in, departure lounge, and boarding gate. Okay? That was exercise B. Let's move on. We have C here. Copy the table below in your notebook and add the words in the blue box to the appropriate column. Okay, so this is interesting and actually a really good way to organize your vocabulary and new words in particular, right? So I want you to copy this table here, okay? And just know that you can use some of these words more than once, okay? So let's take a look at some of the words here. We have airport, ride, port, bicycle, drive, captain, sail, plane, ship, fly, harbor, train, cyclist, driver, railway station, pilot, and cycle lane. Okay? So on this table for transport, we'll obviously state the different methods of transport. So we have bus, after that we'll say bicycle, and then train, plane, and ship. Okay, so these are the different methods of transport from the box, right? What about the person who drives the equipment, right? So bus, obviously driver, bicycle will be a cyclist, train, again driver, plane will be a pilot / captain, both are correct, ship, a captain, obviously. Okay, what about the place? Where do you find these different methods of transport? Obviously for bus, you'll find the bus station. For bicycle, there's something called the cycle lane. Okay, for train, obviously railway station. Plane, airport. And for ships, port / harbor. Okay, both are correct. And for related verbs about these different methods of transport, we can say for buses, drive, right? For bicycle, ride. Train, again, drive. For plane, fly. And ship, sail. Okay, so these are the related verbs for the different methods of transport. Okay, now let's take a look at the skills check here, and that's what I was saying, that this table can help you a lot in organizing your vocab. So this is one way to organize your vocab. A lot of people use different methods. Some people like to record new letters, some people like to write them down. I think that this is one of the best ways personally, is to just divide them up, right? It kind of just, it removes all the clutter from your brain, basically. You just get to look at the word, understand what it means, and boom. Okay? So one way to do that is not only by making a table like that, but to also mark the stress and silent letters, right, on the different words. Okay? So for example, the word drive here, I could put just a line under the letter E, implying that it's a silent letter. Okay? You could also draw pictures, although I'm not a big fan of drawing myself, but you do you, right? You could draw pictures and use different symbols that mean different things to you personally. Okay? Different ways to make notes and different ways to organize your vocabulary. Okay? Take advantage of these. Okay? So now let's go to exercise E here. Tick the stress. Okay, so we're going to talk about the stress a little bit. So we have skills check 2 here, stressing long words. So we talked about this before, but just know that for most nouns and adjectives with 2 syllables, the stress is usually on the first syllable, like traffic, like airport, like happy. Okay, the stress when you're saying it is on the first syllable. Okay, but when it comes to 2-syllable verbs, the stress is usually on the second syllable. Notice how I said usually and not always, right? Because many 2-syllable verbs have the stress on the second syllable, but not all of them, right? Some examples are arrive and depart, okay? The stress is on the second syllable. And then we have 3-syllable words are usually stressed on the first or second syllable. Okay, so when a word has 3 syllables, right, the stress of that word is usually either on the first one or the second. Okay, so we have passenger, right, first syllable, and expensive, right, the stress is on the second syllable, okay? And you got to know that most people often recognize a word from the stress only, okay? So let's actually open exercise E here and check the different stress sounds for each word. Okay, so we have accident, right? Accident will be this part right here, right? Accident, right, in the beginning. So accident, okay? This right here implies that the stress is in the middle, right? Is at the end, in the beginning, and sort of after the beginning, okay? Accident, okay? 2, airport, obviously beginning, right? Appointment is actually, the stress is actually on the last part of the word, okay? So appointment. Then we have arrive, second part, so arrive. Then we have bicycle, again, that's sort of beginning, bicycle. Then we have comfortable, again, same thing, comfortable, okay? Whenever you're in doubt, either go and check the pronunciation or pronounce it yourself, okay? Pronounce it until you figure it out. It's just like spelling. Keep pronouncing the word until you get the spelling that you need. If not, then you can always check it and memorize it for later. We have dangerous, again, same thing, dangerous. Then we have depart, the stress is on the second part. Departure is on the last part. Expensive, again, expensive, last part. Involve, it'll be around here. Yeah, so involve, the last part. Passenger, down here. 13. Pilot, stress is on the first part. Police, second part. Station, first part. And finally, traffic is on the first part, okay? So these are the different stress patterns for each word, okay? Now let's move on. What else do we have? Here we have starting a conversation. Okay, so this is just one of the many ways to start a conversation. You could usually initiate or start a conversation by talking about a journey, right? So we're going to listen to 2 conversations here, and we're going to answer the questions. So pay attention or take out a sticky note. Here we go.
110. Lesson 3. Vocabulary and Pronunciation. Exercise F1. Listen to 2 conversations. Answer the questions.
Conversation 1.
Did you drive here?
Yes, I did.
What was the traffic like?
It was terrible.
Oh dear.
Conversation 2. How did you get here?
I came by train.
How was the journey?
Fine.
Oh, good.
Okay, so how did each speaker travel? Okay, so for the first journey, it was, for one, it was by car, right? So by car. And for 2, he traveled by train, right? So by car because obviously traffic, and by train because it was a journey. All right? And she also said by train. Obviously, a journey could imply that she was on a plane as well. What was the journey like? For one, we'll say that not good or terrible. So we'll say terrible. Oh, I did not mean to write it like that. So terrible. Okay. Let me just write that T in capital. So terrible. And for 2, we'll say good. Okay? So what was the journey like? For 1, terrible, and for 2, it was good. Now we're going to listen one more time, and we're going to complete the conversations.
111. Exercise F2. Listen again and complete the conversations.
Conversation 1.
Did you drive here?
Yes, I did.
What was the traffic like?
It was terrible.
Oh dear.
Conversation 2. How did you get here?
I came by train.
How was the journey?
Fine.
Oh, good.
Okay, so for conversation 1, we'll say, did you drive here? Yes, I did. What was the traffic like? It was terrible, right? So it was terrible. Oh dear. Okay, for conversation 2, how did you get here? I came by train. How was the journey, right? How was the journey? She said, fine. And he said, oh, good. Okay? So now that we're done, I want you guys to do the exact same thing. So, right? Let's say, just make something up that you travel to see a student, right? Talk about how did you travel and what was the journey like, okay? And again, someone else has traveled to see you. You can initiate a conversation about the journey and swap roles later on, okay? So that was vocab and pronunciation, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 4 reading. Let's hop right in. Here we have exercise A. Study table 1, which came first. Number the methods of transport in order, the oldest being from 1 to 10, obviously, or more. Okay? So we're going to actually read the text and we'll go over this later. So when approximately did people start using each method? Think of a date. Again, we'll have the answers to these once we read the text. So we'll get back to this. So exercise B, scan the text opposite, find and underline 8 names in 30 seconds. What is each name? Okay, so I have a way for this to be fun. So what I want you guys to do is I'll stop talking for 30 seconds and I want you guys to find and underline 8 names or more in 30 seconds. Okay, so you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Alright, so there are actually 10 names. You could also pause the video if you need more time. That's totally fine. So let's just say that there are 10 names. So here we have William and Huskisson, right? So William Huskisson, and what's the definition of this name? Is he's a member of the British government, right? And this text is in trains, okay? What else do we have? Do we have anything else here? Yes, it was called the rocket. Rocket is actually also a name. Okay, so what is the definition of a rocket here? It's a railway engine. Okay, and that's why it's in the trains text. Okay, now let's go to pedestrians. Here we have a scientist called Mary Ward. That's also a name. Definition of a text. A scientist, right? She was a scientist. Okay, so Mary Ward was a scientist, and the text is in pedestrians. All right. What else do we have? We have what was her name? Bridget Driscoll. Okay, so Bridget Driscoll, and what is the definition of her text here? She was simply a middle-aged woman in the pedestrians text. Okay. What else do we have? We have Arthur Etzel, okay, and his definition here is that he's just simply a man, and he's in the text of pedestrians, okay? What else do we have? We're going to move on to cars. Here we have Edwin Sewell, okay, and he was an engineer, and his name is in the text of cars, all right? What else do we have? I think we have someone else here, or something else. His passenger, a soldier called Richer. Okay, so Richer was a soldier, and his name is in the text of cars. Okay, and finally we have planes. So we have Orville Wright. Pretty sure that's one of the Wright brothers. Okay, was a maker of bicycles. Okay, so he's a maker of bicycles in the text of planes. And okay, so we have Flyer 1, that's the name of the very first plane. Okay, the plane called, okay, yeah, so Flyer 1, and it was a plane in the text of planes. And what else do we have? We have Thomas Selfridge. Okay, so Thomas Selfridge, he was an American soldier, again in the text of planes. Okay, so that was the first part of exercise B. Now let's go to the second part. So here we have find and circle 8 numbers in 20 seconds. What is each number? Circle, okay, never mind. So find and circle 8 numbers in 20 seconds. What is each number? Alright, you guys, so pause the video for 20 seconds and find 8 or more numbers and come back. Okay, so here we go. So, there are actually around, I'd say, let's actually count them. So first we have 15th September 1830, right? So I think we'll circle. So right, find and circle 8 numbers. Okay. So 1830. We'll actually circle this as well, and we'll say that the type of number here is a date, right? And it's in the text of trains, or the trains text. Okay. And then we have, what else do we have here? We have 40 kilometers per hour, right? Its type is obviously kilometers per hour, which means speed, again in the train's text. And then we have pedestrians. Do we have a date? Yes, we do. We have 31st August 1869. Again, that's a date in pedestrians. Was the first person to die in London in 1896. Okay, so again, that's a year, and in the text of pedestrians. All right, do we have anything else? We have 6. Yep, here we go. 6 kilometers per hour. So again, the type of this number is kilometers per hour, which means speed, again in pedestrians. Okay. Now let's go to cars. Here we have 25th February 1899, which is again a date in the text of cars. Do we have anything else? We have Adam was driving his car to die. His passenger died 3. Yep, so 3 days later in the hospital. So 3 days later, which means a time period, right? So again, the text of cars, and 3 here is a number. That means the time period. Okay? What else do we have? We have planes. Okay, so we have 17th December 1903. That's a date again. Okay, and then we have 37 meters. Okay, so meters here, that means it's distance. Okay. And what else do we have? We have 5. Okay, so 5 here is years later, so that's a time period. And finally, what else do we have? We have about 25 meters. So again, meters, distance, but in this case, it's actually height. Okay, they're talking about a specific height. So in total, we have around 11 numbers. Okay, so 10 names and 11 numbers, you guys. Okay, so that was exercise B. What else do we have? We have prepare to read the text opposite. Alright, so we're gonna go over the text now, and we're gonna answer these questions right after. So here we go. When is it bad to be first? There are thousands of accidents every day involving trains, pedestrians, cars, and planes. In many of these accidents, people die. But when did the first person die in a train accident, a car accident, or a plane crash? Trains. On 15th September 1830, there was a competition in Liverpool, England, between different railway engines. Many people came to watch, including William Huskisson, a member of the British government. Huskisson was talking and did not see one of the engines. It was called the rocket, and it was traveling at about 40 kilometers per hour. It hit him, and he became the first person to die in a railway accident. Pedestrians. A scientist called Mary Ward was the first pedestrian to die in a road accident. on 31 August 1869, she fell under a steam car in Ireland. A woman called Bridget Driscoll was the first person to die in an accident involving a petrol car. She was crossing a road in a London park in 1896. A man called Arthur Edsel hit her. He was driving at only 6 kilometers per hour. The lawyer at the inquest into Bridget's death said, "This kind of accident must never happen again." Cars. On 25th February 1899, Edwin Sewell, an engineer, was driving his own car down a steep hill near London. One wheel broke and he hit a wall. Sewell became the first driver to die in a road accident. His passenger, a soldier called Richard, fell out of the car and died 3 days later in hospital. Planes. Orville Wright was a maker of bicycles, but he was famous because he made the first flight on 17th December 1903 in the USA. The plane, called Flyer 1, traveled 37 meters. 5 years later, Thomas Selfridge, an American soldier, took off with Orville in the same plane. They were flying at about 24 meters and the propeller broke. The plane crashed and Selfridge became the first person to die in a plane accident. Orville broke his leg, but he survived the accident. Okay, so that was the text, you guys. Excuse me. So let's go now to exercise C here. Here we have read the heading and answer the question. Okay, so when is it bad to be first? Alright, so tell me, you guys, when is it bad to be first? I'll definitely say that it's bad to be first. Excuse me. I'll definitely say that it's bad to be first when it comes to, you know, being the first to invent a new method of transport, because it's just so unreliable that you're literally risking your own life in perfecting it, right? So that was the answer for the heading. Read the introduction. What is the text about? Okay, so there's thousands of accidents every day involving trains, pedestrians, cars, and planes. In many of these accidents, people die. But when did the first person die in a train accident, a car accident, or a plane crash? Okay, so the introduction is about accidents, and more specifically, the first accidents for each type of transport where people died. Okay? 3. What order will the information be in and why? Okay, so I'll definitely say that it'll probably be in the same order as in the first sentence, like trains, pedestrians, cars, and planes. Okay? And finally, we have 4. Check with the subheadings and illustrations. In this case, we'll say that this just simply shows that the order is as predicted. Okay? So exercise C was simple. Now let's move on to exercise D, work in groups of 4. So let me actually open this so you guys can get a better view here. Here we have choose one method of transport each. So groups of 4, choose one method, whether that's planes, pedestrians, cars, or trains, and find the key information related to you and write it in table 1 here. Alright, so I want you guys to pause the video and do this on your own and then come back, okay? Now let me do it. So we have planes, and the date was around, what was it? Let's go to planes. Okay. So planes, the date was 1908. Okay. Location was USA. The person was, what was his name? It was Thomas Selfridge. So Thomas Selfridge. Thomas Selfridge. His car, or plane, or etc., in this case plane, we'll say it was Flyer 1. Okay? And the driver or pilot was Orville Wright. So, Orville Wright. Okay? And method 2 is pedestrians. And what was the date? I think the date was, let me check, 31st August 1869. Okay. So we'll say 31/08 1869. Okay, and the other date was around when was this? 1896. Okay, 1896. Both locations were, I know this one, so Ireland and London. Okay, so London. And the person, let me remember this, it was Mary Ward and Bridget Driscoll. Okay. So, Mary Ward, and we'll say Bridget Driscoll. Okay? Car or plane, whatever. We'll say petrol car. Petrol. Or actually, Mary Ward was steam car, right? Steam car, and Bridget Driscoll was petrol car. Okay? And the driver pilot for Bridget Driscoll was Arthur Edsel, I think. Was Arthur Edsel. Okay, yeah, that's the person that hit her actually. Okay, so Arthur Edsel. Arthur Edsel. Alright. And that is actually... Let's go to cars now. Okay. So cars was around... When was this? 25th of February, 1899. Okay, so we'll say 25/02 and 1899. Okay. Location was again London. Okay. People here were Edwin, right? Edwin Sewell and Richer. Okay, so Richer and Edwin Sewell. Car or plane, it was a petrol car. Petrol car. And driver, pilot, etc. was again Edwin Sewell. Sewell, and again Richer. Okay? So Edwin Sewell and Richer. And finally we have trains. Trains was around 15th September in 1893, so 15/09 1830. Location was Liverpool, right? Liverpool. Person was William Huskisson, right? I think that, yes, William Huskisson. Okay, so William Huskisson. Car, plane, whatever. It was actually rocket, remember? And no information on the driver or pilot. Okay? Alright, so that was exercise D, you guys. These are all the information about the 4 different methods in the text. Now let's move on. Here we have read the skills check. Alright, so here again, this is something similar that I've talked to you guys about before. Skills check. So, guessing words simply from context or from the context around the word. So, you guys will often read new words in a text. Just know that you cannot guess the meaning of a single word, right? So if I tell you, what's the meaning of competition or what's the meaning of steam? You'll simply tell me, I don't know, right? But if the word is in a phrase or sentence or a paragraph, then you can kind of guess the meaning. So if I say, instead of saying competition, if I say there was a competition between different engines, many people came to watch. You can kind of understand what competition means here, right? It means sort of competition, something between the different engines, okay? For example, the word flight. He made the first flight the plane, right? The plane called. So look at the text before the word and after the word, hence context, okay? Down a steep hill, right? A steam car. Just depends on the word and the context around it, okay? Excuse me. Okay. Now let's move on. Explain the words below to the other students in your group and exercise D. Okay. So here we have member, inquest, wheel, propeller, survived. So I actually got all of these, but I want you guys to read the text one more time before I show you the meanings of these words and tell me what you think they mean. Okay? Ready? So here we go. Here, I know all of you probably know what member means. So a member is a person or an animal or even a plant that belongs to a particular group, right? So if I'm in a gaming community or whatever community, I'm a member of said community, okay? An inquest is actually a court hearing to gather information about the cause and circumstances of a death. And you'll find it in the text here as well about the lady that died from the car and when the person was going at around 6 kilometers per hour, okay? So again, an inquest is a court hearing to gather information about the cause and circumstances of a death. Okay? Then we have a wheel. All of us know what a wheel is. It's a circle-shaped object that is mostly used in transport. Okay? So it's mostly used but not limited to transport. Okay? Then we have a propeller. So a propeller is actually a mechanical device for propelling a boat or aircraft. And I'll actually go here and show you guys what I mean. So propeller, let me get that right, images. You guys will get a better view of what I mean. I think you guys now know what I mean. You see this? This is called the propeller on a plane. Propeller on a boat, let me write it down so you'll probably get a better view here. So propeller on a boat looks like so, okay? You see these? This is called the propeller, okay? So you saw it on a plane and on a boat, all right? So it's a mechanical device for propelling a boat or aircraft, okay? Then we have survive, which is simple. It simply means continue to live or exist, especially in spite of danger or hardship, okay? So these are all words that you'll find in the text. Now let's move on. Here we have find and highlight examples of the past simple and past continuous, aka the past progressive, in the text. Okay, so the highlighted examples, or you should find some examples of the past simple. What do you guys think the past simple is? Past simple is when I say she worked hard, right? Continuous or present progressive is when I say she was watching, right? So she watched, this is past simple. Right? Past progressive is when I say I, or continuous, I was watching. Okay? ing means it's continuous, ed it's simple. Okay? Now let's move on to the final table here. Here we have method, date. I think we actually wrote all of these. Yeah, okay, so we did this one. So I think that's about it. Yeah, so just let me actually take a look at the text here. So on 15th September 1830, Liverpool, England, between many people came to watch, including William Huskisson, a member of the British government. Huskisson was talking. Okay, so Huskisson was talking, this is continuous, and did not see one of the engines. It was called the rocket, and it was traveling, again continuous, at about 40 kilometers per hour. It hit him, and he became the first person to die in a railway accident. So this is what I'm talking about, past continuous and past simple. Okay, so again, she worked, ed, that means it's simple, and continuous is when I add an I and G. Alright, so that was reading, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to Lesson 5, Writing and Grammar. Let's start with Exercise A here. Look at the table, complete it with the correct verb. So here we have the past continuous, I believe. Yes, we do. So we have the table 1 about the past continuous. And you guys know when using the past continuous, we use the verb to be. So was, where. Okay? So I, he, she, it, dash, writing. So we'll use was because this is singular. Okay? Now, when using you, we, or they, this is really simple. We'll use where. Why? Because this is plural. Okay? You, we use plural with you, and we because obviously plural, and they as well. Okay? Now let's go to 2. Match the past continuous actions with the past simple interruptions and results. Okay, so on this side right here, we have past continuous actions, okay? So actions that are in the past continuous form, right? And on the other side, we have some past simple interruptions and results, okay? So let's go to A here. We have Jim was riding his horse. Okay, so Jim was riding his horse, and I'll probably say he fell off and broke his arm. This one's correct. Okay, just matching the actions. So Jim was riding his horse, he fell off and broke his arm. Okay, B. Tina and Liz were driving home. I'll probably say a dog ran in the road and they hit it. Okay, so Tina and Liz were driving home. A dog ran in the road and they hit it. Okay, C. Sally was getting on the boat. She slipped and fell in the river. Okay, I think this one, the river gave away this one. So Sally was getting on the boat. She slipped and fell in the river. Okay, then we have D. Stan was reading a book. Stan was reading a book. He didn't see his station and went past it. Yeah. So, okay. So Stan was reading a book. He didn't see his station and went past it. Okay? And finally, we have Tom and Grace were waiting for a taxi. A friend saw them and took them home in his car. Okay? So these were some of the past continuous actions with some of the past simple interruptions and results. Okay, now let's go to 3 here. We have look at the planes paragraph again. You guys remember the planes paragraph that we talked about in the reading section. Okay, so here we have some questions about that. So we'll read this really quickly and then we'll get back to the questions. So we have Orville Wright was a maker of bicycles, but he was famous because he made the first flight on 17th December 1903 in the USA. The plane, called Flyer 1, traveled 37 meters. 5 years later, Thomas Selfridge, an American soldier, took off with Orville in the same plane. They were flying at about 25 meters and the propeller broke. The plane crashed and Selfridge became the first person to die in a plane accident. Orville broke his leg, but he survived the accident. Okay? Now let's go to question A. What action was happening before the accident? So what action was happening before the accident happened, you guys? What do you guys think from here? Yes, they were flying at about 25 meters. Okay? And that's when, the propeller broke. But right before the accident, they were flying at about 25 meters. Okay? 2. What was the interruption? So in this case, the interruption was obviously that the propeller broke. So we'll say the propeller broke. Okay? And C. What was the result of all of this? The result was the plane crashed and obviously Selfridge died. Okay? So the plane crashed and Thomas Selfridge died. Alright? Now let's move on to exercise B. Here we have link actions together. Let me open this. So here we have write the 2 sentences below as one sentence. What word do you need to join them? Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to have to check the skills check here. So using the word when with interrupted actions. Okay, so we can write the action and interruption in the same sentence. So check it out here. So we have Sally was getting on the boat. she slipped and fell in the river, right? But what if I want to join them together? I don't want two sentences, I want one sentence, right? I know there's an interruption here, but I want them both together. That's when, that's where the word when comes in, okay? So I can say the rocket was traveling at about 40 kilometers per hour, and instead of using a full stop, I'll join the two sentences by saying when it hit William Huskisson, right? He was driving down a steep hill when a wheel broke, okay? So here we have the action, but instead of ending it, just use when and keep going with the interruption, okay? So again, let's say Sally was getting on the boat, she slipped and fell in the river. I'll say Sally was getting on the boat when she slipped and fell in the river. Okay, so use when to link the action and the interruption together. Okay, you could also link the interruption and the result of the action and the interruption and result together in the same sentence. Okay, so when, I'll use when in the beginning here instead of in the middle. When the wheel broke, I'm not gonna use a full stop, but I am gonna use a comma here. So when the wheel broke, Sewell hit a wall. Okay, when the plane crashed, Orville broke his leg. So because of this happened. Okay, action and then interruption. But when I want to join them together, I'll say for example, the rocket was traveling at about 40 kilometers per hour when it hit William Huskisson. Okay, now let's go to exercise B here. Sally was getting on the boat, she slipped and fell in the river. So I'll say Sally was getting on the boat when she slipped and fell in the river. Okay, so Sally was getting on the boat when she slipped and fell in the river. 2. Write these sentences below in another way. Use the adverb from the sentence and add a comma. Okay, so Jim fell off his horse and broke his arm. Okay, so now we're going to use the second example that we talked about. We're going to use when in the beginning. Okay, so we're going to use an adverb from the sentence and add a comma. So like this. So when a wheel broke, Sewell hit a wall. When a plane crashed, Orville broke his leg. So we'll say, obviously, when Jim fell off his horse, comma, he broke his arm, right? So when Jim fell off his horse, he broke his arm. Okay? So hope you got that. That was simple enough, linking actions together. Now let's move on. So what else do we have? Here we have exercise C, a simple table here with two different patterns. Let's open this to get a better view here. We have linking past forms with when, okay? So here you have the car was traveling at 80 kilometers per hour when a wheel broke. So obviously was traveling past continuous when, and what else is missing, you guys? When a wheel broke. What is this called? That's correct. This is called the past simple, okay? Please always know the difference between the past continuous and the past simple, okay? Was traveling and, for example, broken, eaten, broke, okay? So the second one, when the wheel broke, the car hit a wall. Okay, so again, when the wheel broke, this is again past simple, plus the car hit a wall. This is also past simple, but note the comma, okay? Put it on the side here, like note the comma, okay? So that was the two different patterns that we talked about. Now let's move on. Okay, this is an interesting exercise. So here we have work in pairs. So study the text from your teacher and look carefully at the grammar. tell your partner about it, and use table 3 to help you. Okay, so I'm gonna read to you two texts here, right? A and B, okay, about the two different disasters here. I want you guys to listen closely, okay, and use this table right here to explain or tell your partner about it, and then you can swap roles, etc. Okay? So I'll start with text A, which will be air disaster, and then I'll go to B, which is sea disaster. Okay? So here we go. Ready? Have a listen. So, the worst air disaster in history happened in Tenerife, near the west coast of Africa, on March 27th, 1977. A 747 plane was taking off when it hit another 747 on the ground. 583 people died. Text B. The worst sea disaster in history happened on January 30th, 1945, in the Baltic Sea, near the coast of Germany. A passenger ship called the Wilhelm Gustloff was sailing from Danzig to Kiel. A torpedo hit the ship and it went down. Over 7,000 people died. Okay, so these were the two texts. Now, complete this exercise in pairs and let's move on. Okay, so here we have exercise E. Read the witness statement from one of the accidents in lesson 2. Okay, so this is one of the accidents in the beginning of, or in lesson 2. So, and we're going to put the correct form of the verb, which is either past simple or past continuous in this case. Just give me a second here. Let me plug it in. Alright. So, I will probably stand at the bus stop in Blankenton. Alright, so we'll say, for the first one, I was standing at the bus stop in Blackington Road when I saw the accident. Some cars were waiting at the traffic lights about 35 meters from me. The lights were red, but one car, not stop, so we'll say didn't stop, right? The driver went, right, past tense. The driver went into the back of the car in front. I think he was talking on his cell phone and wasn't looking at the road. When he hit, when he hit the car in front, there was a terrible bang. Okay, so that was one of the witness statements, right? And we used the correct forms of verbs here, so past simple and past continuous, right? Now, what I want you guys to do before we move on is write a similar report of an accident that you saw or were involved in, okay? So either write witness statement about yourself or just your own experience if you're ever in a car accident or whatever, just any sort of accident, okay? Now, let's move on, you guys. Alright, you guys, so now moving on to the final lesson here, lesson 6, Writing and Grammar Part 2. Let's hop right in. So we have exercise A, read about Hindenburg, write notes in the table. Okay, so we're going to talk about the most famous air accident. So the most famous air accident in history involved the Hindenburg airship. The Hindenburg was the largest flying machine in history. It took off from Frankfurt Airport. It was going to New Jersey. There were 36 passengers and 61 crew members. It was landing in New Jersey on May 3rd, 1937, when a fire started. When the airship fell to the ground, 13 passengers and 22 crew died. Okay? So this was just a simple text about Hindenburg and the most famous air accident. Okay, so let's go to these notes here. We're going to compare Hindenburg with the Titanic. Okay, so from place that it was coming from, so in this case Hindenburg will be we'll say Frankfurt, right, and Titanic will be Southampton. Okay, and to Hindenburg was going to New Jersey, that the Titanic was obviously going to New York, right? Number of passengers and crew was, for Hindenburg, it was, what was it? It was 36 and 61, right? And wow, for the Titanic, it was 1,316 passengers and 913 crew members. Okay? What was the action for the Titanic? It was obviously sailing, and for Hindenburg, it was landing, and it was supposed to land in New Jersey on, we'll write 3rd of May, so 3/5/1937. Okay, for the Titanic, it was sailing from, or supposed to be from 14/4/1912. Okay, what was the interruption that caused all of the problems? For Hindenburg, it was that it caught fire, right? So we'll say caught fire. And for the Titanic, obviously we all know this, it hit an iceberg. Okay, and the result of that was that the Titanic obviously sank, and for Hindenburg, it fell to the ground. Okay, the number of passengers and crew that died that day for Hindenburg was 13 passengers, yes, and 22 crew members. And for the Titanic, it was, wow, it was 818 passengers and 698 crew members. Okay, a truly tragic accident. All right. Okay, so now that we read the notes about both, I want you guys to write a quick paragraph just like this one about the Titanic based on the notes here. Okay, so you literally have the exact same information. Now write it in a paragraph and let's move on. Okay, so here we have complete the sentences below so that they are true for you. Okay, so this will be entirely up to you as a student, right? Write some sentences below that you think are true for you. So for me personally, I'd say, I was coming to the university yesterday when the ambulance crashed, right? This is just an example of how you can write these sentences. Okay, 2, when I arrived in class yesterday morning, there was no one. Okay, so when I arrived in class yesterday morning, there was no one. 3, last week I was having lunch when, I'll say I heard the police sirens. Okay, so last week I was having lunch when I heard the police sirens. Okay, and 4, when classes finished yesterday, I'll say we all went out for brunch. Okay, so when classes finished yesterday, we all went out for brunch. All right, so that was exercise C. Now let's move on here. Okay, so this is a bar graph, and we talked about, the different graphs before, you guys, and how it's important to be able to read the different graphs. So here we have some numbers, and if you read, you'll say, it says that these are student numbers. Okay, so the number of students based on the method of transport. So here you have bus, walk, bike, train, moped, and car. Okay, so ask how they travel to university, like so. Write a report. Okay, so the bus has around 15 students come by bus. So okay, so here we have some of the numbers, and we're gonna put them in the text here. So let's go. So we have, there are 32 students in my class, and they come to university by 6 different methods. Okay, nearly dash the students come by bus, so we'll say nearly half because it's the biggest one. So nearly half the students come by bus. Dash students live very close and always walk. Does anybody walk here? Yeah, okay, so 5, so we'll choose 5. Okay, so 5 students live very close and always walk. Dash students usually ride their bikes. How many bikes? I think that's around 6. Okay, so 6. So we'll say 6 students usually ride their bikes, though 2 of them sometimes walk. Dash students live outside the city and come by train. How many? Let's take a look. So train, this looks like it's a 2. So we'll say 2 students live outside the city and come by train. they walk from the station. Okay, yes, that's it. So students come to university on their mopeds. Let's take a look. So moped, that looks like it's a 3. So we'll say 3 students come to university on their mopeds, which are small motorbikes, by the way, and dash drives, obviously 1, I think, because yeah, so 1, and 1 drives, as in 1 person. Okay, so again, there are 32 students in my class, and they come to university by 6 different methods. Here we have the 6 different methods, by the way. Okay, 5 students live very close by and always walk. And by the way, all of these answers are from the graph. Okay, 6 students usually ride their bikes, though 2 of them sometimes walk. 2 students live outside the city and come by train. They walk from the station. 3 students come to university on their mopeds, which are small motorbikes, and 1 drives. Okay, so that was the bar graph, you guys. Now let's move on to exercise E here. Read the sentences and circle the correct word or phrase. So number 1, a way or one way to measure safety is to look at accidents for each method of travel. One way, right? One way because I can talk about multiple ways, so or different ways. So one way to measure safety is to look at accidents for each method of travel. There are 2 roads. Shall we take this one or another one or the other one? In this case, we'll use the other one. Okay? 3. Alternatively, we must or we could go by train. Okay, so here he or she said alternatively, which means we could also, right? So we could, right? It's not a necessity, but it is an alternative. Okay? If it's a must, then we have to use that. Like, we have to use the train. It's not an alternative anymore. It's a must. Okay, so in this case, it's could. Alternatively, we could go by train. How or what was the traffic like on the way here? This is a simple what question. So what was the traffic like on the way here? Okay. 5. The car traveled or was traveling at 80 kilometers per hour. This is a past continuous, you guys. Was traveling at 80 kilometers per hour. Okay? The car was traveling at 80 kilometers per hour. And that's a continuation. Number 6. When it hit, was hitting the wall. When it simply hit the wall. Okay? When it hit the wall. 7. When the plane crashed or was crashing, the pilot died. Okay, so when the plane crashed, the pilot died. Okay? Cannot use past continuous here. So when the plane crashed, the pilot died. Okay, you guys? So I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it. So that was Unit 7, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.